This isn't a show. This is my wedding. Aisha Carter's voice echoed through the historic Atlanta church, cutting through the fading gospel choir and the growing murmurs of the crowd. Her hands gripped a small bouquet of daisies, her shoulders stiff as she stood in a worn secondhand wedding dress. The laughter didn't stop, not at first. Someone in the pews snorted, "What's this? A maid playing bride?" Another voice sneered, "Did she borrow that dress from the laundry bin?" Aisha froze mid-aisle, her face burning as eyes she'd known for years. Neighbors, co-workers, pierced her with mockery. Phones flashed, capturing her every step. "I see you," she said, her voice rising. "All of you. If this story of courage grips you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And what time is it?" Aisha Carter's sneakers scuffed the sun-scorched pavement of Peachtree Street, the Atlanta skyline jagged against a July sky thick with heat. Her hands clutched a wilting bouquet of daisies, petals curling like her bank account after months of scraping by. The second-hand wedding dress, $30 from a dusty consignment shop in Decatur, clung to her frame, its faded ivory lace scratching her skin with every step. She'd spent weeks hunting for it, pinning it to fit her curves, convincing herself it was enough. Her heart thumped louder than the bass-heavy trap music blasting from a lowrider cruising past, its chrome rims glinting. Ebenezer Baptist Church loomed ahead, its red brick walls steeped in history, its steeple piercing the haze. This wasn't just another day scrubbing floors for folks who never saw her. This was her wedding day, her shot to be seen. Aisha paused at the church's heavy oak doors, her breath catching. The faint hum of a gospel choir leaked out, warm and soulful, but it couldn't drown the churn in her gut. She'd invited 40 people, co-workers, neighbors, church folks, but the chatter spilling through the cracks sounded like a crowd twice that size. Her fingers tightened around the daisies, stems bending. She'd cleaned houses for half these people, doctors with Buckhead mansions, deacons who tipped her with crumpled fives and fake smiles. Today they'd have to look her in the eye. Today she was more than a maid. She pushed the doors open, the creak slicing through the choir's warm-up like a warning shot. The air inside hit her like a cool slap, heavy with the scent of polished pews and old hymnals. Heads swiveled, eyes locking onto her like spotlights. The gospel harmony faltered, notes dropping into a sea of whispers. Aisha froze, one foot on the crimson aisle runner, her pulse hammering in her throat. The pews were packed, way more than 40 faces. Neighbors from her Vine City apartment block, co-workers from the cleaning agency, church ladies in wide-brimmed hats. They stared, their gazes sharp, slicing through her thrift store gown. "Is that her dress?" A woman in a sleek silk suit hissed, her voice cutting across the pews like a razor. "Girl looks like she raided her grandma's attic." A man in a tailored blazer smirked, leaning back. "What's this? A budget bridal special?" Laughter rippled, low and mean, like gravel underfoot. Aisha's cheeks burned, blood rushing to her face. She caught Caleb's eyes at the altar, his lanky frame stiff in a rented suit 2 sizes too big, his dark gaze steady like it was at Java Jive's open mic nights. They'd met there, over lukewarm coffee and his quiet guitar strums, his voice soft as he sang a melody just for her. That look anchored her now, pulling her forward. She took a step, the gown swishing too loudly in the sudden hush. "She thinks she's pulling this off?" A voice jeered from the back, sharp enough to sting. "That dress is giving Salvation Army vibes." Snickers spread, jagged and cold. Aisha's chest tightened, her breath short. She knew these faces. Mrs. Jenkins, who'd haggle over cleaning fees. Brother Ellis, who'd called her the help like it was her name. Her co-worker, Shanice, staring at the floor, too spineless to speak up. Phones glinted in their hands, lenses flashing like vultures circling. TikTok was probably already eating this up. Aisha's fingers crushed the daisies, petals fluttering to the floor like broken promises. Her knees wobbled, but she locked them in place. She'd scrubbed marble counters till her hands cracked. Saved every penny for this day, this moment. She wouldn't let their shade dim her light. "This ain't no damn show," she said, her voice cracking but loud, bouncing off the stained glass windows. "This is my wedding." The words hit like a fist, silencing the crowd for a heartbeat. A few smirks faltered, but the whispers crept back, bolder now. She thinks she's Beyoncé in that rag? A teenager in a Hawks jersey scoffed, his phone angled for the perfect shot. Who's the groom? Some broke-ass delivery dude? The laughter swelled, a swarm of bees stinging her ears. Aisha's pulse roared, her palms slick against the bouquet. She pictured Caleb at Java Jive, his calloused fingers strumming a song he'd written for her, his dreams too big for his Amazon van. He'd never asked for her pity, only her time. Every Tuesday after her shift, splitting a turkey sandwich under the cafe's buzzing neon sign. Those nights had built this moment, this love. I see you, Aisha said, her voice steady now, fierce enough to rattle the chandeliers. All of you. The crowd stilled, eyes narrowing, caught off guard by her fire. She lifted her chin, her gaze burning, determined to reach that altar for Caleb, for herself. But then, from the corner of her eye, she saw a hand rise in the pews. A silver soda can gleamed, its arc slow and deliberate, aimed straight for her heart. Yo, if this story's got you hooked, smash that subscribe button and keep it 100. Drop a comment, where you're watching from, and what's the vibe right now. The silver soda can slice through the air of Ebenezer Baptist Church, its glint under the chandelier light like a blade aimed at Aisha Carter's heart. It spun, fizz hissing from a cracked tab, before smashing into her shoulder with a wet thwack. Cola sprayed across her thrift store wedding dress, soaking the frayed lace and splattering the crimson aisle runner. Aisha stumbled, daisies slipping from her sweaty grip, their petals scattering like confetti gone wrong. A gasp cut through the crowd, chased by a snicker that swelled into a vicious roar of laughter. Phones stayed raised, their lenses ravenous, already blasting her shame across TikTok with hashtags like "She's Ghetto Bride." Yo, she's a walking soda stain now, a guy in a Hawks jersey crowed, his voice bouncing off the stained glass windows. Aisha's face burned, blood pounding in her ears like a trap beat. The cola dripped down her arm, cold and sticky, but the laughter stung worse, shredding her pride like cheap paper. She locked eyes with Caleb at the altar, his jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists like he was ready to charge down the aisle. But he stayed rooted, his steady gaze screaming, "Hold on." Aisha wanted to bolt, to vanish into the polished floorboards, but her feet glued her to the spot. The crowd's jeers grew bolder, a pack of hyenas smelling blood. Who let her think she could pull this off? A woman in a sequined dress sneered, her red lipstick curling like a snake. That dress is straight up tragic, another voice hollered, sparking cackles that echoed off the vaulted ceiling. Aisha's chest heaved, her breath jagged. She knew these faces. Mrs. Jenkins, who'd nickel and dime her cleaning fees. Brother Ellis, who'd called her girl at 30. Her co-worker Shanice, now hiding behind her phone, filming like this was some reality show. Their betrayal cut deeper than the soda, a knife twisting in her gut. Aisha's fingers crushed the daisy stems, snapping them clean. Her knees shook, but she squared her shoulders, forcing air into her lungs. She'd scrubbed mansions till her hands bled, saved every dime for this day. She wouldn't let their shade break her. "This ain't your damn circus," she said, her voice low at first, then rising like a storm. "This is my wedding." The words cracked the air, silencing the laughter for a split second. A few heads dropped, but the smirks crept back, sharper now. "She thinks she's Beyoncé in that rag?" A teenager jeered, his phone angled for clout. "What's next? A dollar store tiara?" The crowd roared again, louder, uglier. Aisha's pulse thundered, her palms slick. She pictured Caleb at Java Jive, his calloused fingers strumming a melody he'd written just for her, his voice soft as he shared dreams too big for his Amazon van. Those nights had built this moment, her love, her fight. She wouldn't let them steal it. "I vow to stand tall, even when y'all laugh," she said, her voice steady now, ringing through the sanctuary like a bell. "I vow to love with my whole heart, even when you say I ain't worth it. And I vow to never let your judgment, your phones, your shade, tell me who I am." Each word burned her throat, but she pushed them out, her eyes blazing. She took a step forward, the cola-soaked dress clinging to her like a badge. This gown might be old. I might not have diamonds, but I'm here, choosing love over fear, knowing y'all would tear me down and still walking this aisle. The crowd stilled, caught off guard by her fire. Mrs. Jenkins shifted in her seat, her smirk fading. Shanice lowered her phone, her eyes guilty. Even the teenager hesitated, his thumb hovering over the record button. Aisha's chest rose and fell, her breath heavy but proud. She'd faced their hate and turned it into a vow. Caleb's gaze softened, a flicker of awe in his eyes, urging her to keep going. But then, a murmur rippled through the pews. A woman in the back stood, her face twisted with scorn. "You call that love?" she spat, her voice loud enough to halt the choir. "You're a joke, girl." The words landed like a slap, reigniting the crowd's cruelty. Phones snapped back up, lenses glinting. Aisha's heart lurched, her vow still echoing in her ears. But the weight of their hate pressed harder now, threatening to crack her resolve. Aisha Carter stumbled out of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the heavy oak doors slamming shut behind her like a gavel. The Atlanta sun burned her eyes, but it couldn't touch the cold ache in her chest. Cola still dripped from her thrift store wedding dress, the sticky stains blooming like wounds across the lace. Her daisies, crushed and broken, lay scattered on the church steps, trampled by her own frantic escape. The hum of the city, car horns, distant trap beats, kids shouting down Peachtree, felt like a mockery of her shattered moment. She ripped the veil from her head, the cheap tulle tearing, and stuffed it into a trash can, her hands shaking. The weight of 100 staring eyes clung to her, their laughter echoing in her skull. She walked, head down, through Vine City's cracked sidewalks, her wet dress dragging like a chain. Passers-by stared, some with pity, others with smirks. A teenager on a bike slowed, phone in hand, his grin sharp. "Yo, you're that girl from TikTok. The soda bride?" Aisha's stomach twisted. The video was already out there, racking up views, her humiliation tagged Yurkshanar Ghetto Bride for the world to feast on. She quickened her pace, her sneakers slapping the pavement, but there was no outrunning the whispers. At the corner store, Mr. Davis, who'd sold her coffee for years, looked her up and down. "Rough day, huh?" he said, his pity worse than scorn. Aisha forced a nod, her throat too tight to speak. Back at her cramped apartment, she locked the door and sank against it, her breath hitching. The cola had dried into a crusty stain, the dress now a rag of shame. She pressed her palms to her eyes, trying to block out the church, the jeers, the phones, the way Shanice wouldn't meet her gaze. Her phone buzzed on the counter, notifications piling up. TikTok, Instagram, texts from numbers she didn't know. "You good, girl?" one read, from a co-worker who'd laughed in the pews. Aisha turned the phone face down, her chest caving under the weight of betrayal. Her mind drifted, unbidden, to a softer place. 2 years back, Piedmont Park, the air thick with summer and the scent of grilled hot dogs from a nearby vendor. Aisha had just finished a 12-hour cleaning shift, her hands raw, her back screaming. She'd sat on a bench, unwrapping a turkey sandwich, when Caleb appeared. Lanky, in a faded Amazon polo, his delivery bag slung over one shoulder. He'd been humming a tune, soft and low, his fingers tapping a rhythm on his knee. "Mind if I sit?" he'd asked, his voice warm like the Georgia sun. She'd shrugged, offering half her sandwich without thinking. "Only took one bite," she'd said, and his smile, crooked, grateful, had lit something in her. Every Tuesday after that, they'd meet at that bench. Aisha brought sandwiches or iced tea from Java Jive, and Caleb brought stories, tales of music he loved, dreams of writing songs that hit harder than Outkast. He'd strummed air guitar, mimicking chords, his eyes bright with a fire she envied. "You ever think about more than this?" he'd asked once, nodding at her cleaning uniform. She'd laughed, bitter. "More ain't for folks like me." But he'd leaned closer, his voice steady. "You're more than they let you see, Aisha." Those words had stuck, blooming in her heart like the daisies she'd carried today. Back in her apartment, Aisha's eyes stung, tears mixing with the cola's sticky residue. She stumbled to the bathroom, catching her reflection in the cracked mirror. The woman staring back looked like a fighter who'd taken a hit. Eyes red, face streaked, dress ruined. She gripped the sink, her knuckles whitening. Had Caleb seen this coming? Had he known they'd tear her apart? His steady gaze in the church flashed in her mind, but now it felt like a question, not an anchor. Why hadn't he stepped in? Why hadn't he stopped them? She slid to the floor, the tile cold against her skin. The church's laughter rang in her ears, but so did her vow. I vow to stand tall, she whispered, her voice hoarse. She'd meant every word, but now they felt hollow, like promises made to a ghost. Her phone buzzed again, another notification lighting up the screen. Aisha didn't look. She curled her knees to her chest, the memory of Caleb's crooked smile clashing with the sting of the crowd's hate, leaving her stranded between love and doubt. Aisha Carter sat on the sagging couch in her Vine City apartment, the cola-stained wedding dress crumpled in a trash bag by the door. The hum of Atlanta's evening traffic seeped through her cracked window, mixing with the low buzz of her phone, still blowing up with TikTok notifications. Sure you are, ghetto bride. Soda bride. Each ping felt like a jab to her ribs. She hugged her knees, her eyes fixed on the chipped coffee table, trying to block out the church, the laughter, the phones, the way her vow had burned her throat but hadn't stopped their shade. Her fingers twitched, itching to check the comments. But she knew better. The internet didn't forgive. A knock rattled the door. Aisha flinched, her heart lurching. Who is it? She called, her voice hoarse from crying. It's me, girl. Open up. LaToya's voice, sharp but softer than usual, cut through the silence. Aisha dragged herself up, unlocking the door to let her coworker in. LaToya stood there, her braids pulled back, a plastic bag of takeout wings in one hand, her eyes darting like she was carrying guilt. Brought you some food, she said, setting the bag on the counter. You look like you ain't eaten since yesterday. Aisha forced a half smile, her stomach too knotted to care about wings. Thanks, she mumbled, sinking back onto the couch. LaToya hesitated, then sat beside her, picking at a loose thread on her jeans. I saw the video, she said, her voice low. Everybody's talking. I should have said something in that church, Aisha. I froze. Aisha's jaw tightened, the memory of LaToya's averted eyes stinging fresh. Yeah, you did, she said, sharper than she meant. LaToya winced but didn't argue. Look, I'm here now, okay? LaToya leaned forward, her eyes searching Aisha's. And I heard something you need to know. About Caleb. Aisha's pulse spiked, her hands clenching. What about him? LaToya glanced at the door, like she was spilling forbidden tea. Word on the street is he ain't just some delivery dude. Somebody at Java Jive said they saw him with a music producer last month, some big shot from Def Jam. Said Caleb was acting all sketchy, like he didn't want to be seen. Aisha's breath caught, her mind racing. Caleb? With a music producer? She shook her head, trying to laugh it off, but it came out brittle. That's crazy. He's just a guy with a van and a guitar. But LaToya's eyes didn't waver. Real talk, Aisha. I heard he's got connections. Like maybe he's somebody in the music game, hiding out. You sure you know him? The question landed like a stone in Aisha's gut, heavy and cold. Her mind flashed to Java Jive 2 years back, the air thick with coffee and cigarette smoke. She'd been wiping down tables after a long shift, her cleaning uniform stiff with sweat, when Caleb took the open mic stage. His fingers danced over the guitar, pulling out a melody that hushed the room, a song about chasing dreams in a city that didn't care. His voice, raw and soulful, had hit her like a wave, making her forget the ache in her back. After his set, she'd slid him a free coffee, her heart tripping over itself. You wrote that? She'd asked. He'd grinned, crooked and shy. Yeah, for nobody but me. That night, they talked until closing, sharing stories under the cafe's flickering neon sign. Every Tuesday since, they'd meet, sometimes at Java Jive, sometimes at Piedmont Park. Caleb would strum air guitar, humming bars he swore he'd record one day. I want my music to mean something, he'd said, his eyes bright with a fire Aisha envied. Something real, not just clout. She'd believed him, Every word, because he looked at her like she was more than a maid, more than a paycheck. But now Latoya's words clawed at her. Had he been playing her, hiding something bigger? Aisha's fingers dug into the couch, her nails biting the fabric. He never lied to me, she said, but her voice wavered, doubt creeping in like a shadow. She pictured Caleb's steady gaze in the church, the way he'd stood silent while the crowd tore her apart. Why hadn't he stepped up? Was he testing her or hiding something else? Latoya touched her arm, her voice soft. Just watch your back, okay? You don't deserve more hurt. Aisha nodded, her throat tight, but her heart was a tangle of hope and fear. She stood, pacing to the window, the city's lights blurring through her tears. The memory of Caleb's song, raw, honest, clashed with Latoya's warning, leaving her stranded on a razor's edge. Had she loved a man who was real, or a stranger wearing a mask? The question burned, unanswered, as Atlanta's skyline pulsed outside, indifferent to her unraveling world. The air in Ebenezer Baptist Church crackled, thick with the aftershock of Aisha Carter's vow. Her words, "I vow to stand tall," still hung in the sanctuary, but the crowd's venom reignited, their phones glinting like knives ready to carve her deeper. The woman in the back, her scornful, "You're a joke, girl," still ringing, sat down smirking. Aisha stood frozen on the crimson aisle runner, her cola-soaked dress clinging to her skin, her crushed daisies littering the floor. Her chest heaved, her eyes locked on Caleb at the altar, begging for a lifeline. Then he moved. Caleb stepped forward, his rented suit hanging loose, his face no longer just steady but hard, like steel forged in fire. He raised a hand, silencing the choir's faltering notes. "Enough," he said, his voice low but sharp, slicing through the murmurs like a blade. The crowd stilled, phones lowering slightly, caught off guard. Aisha's breath caught, her heart pounding like a drum. What was he doing? "My name is Caleb Isaiah Moore," he said, stepping onto the pulpit, his eyes sweeping the pews. "But some of y'all might know me as Simo, the producer behind half the hits on your Spotify playlists." Gasps rippled through the church, sharp and sudden. Aisha's knees buckled, her mind reeling. Simo, the name behind chart toppers for stars like Cardi and Drake? No, this was her Caleb, delivery guy, guitar strummer, broke dreamer. "I walked away from that life 3 years ago," he continued, his voice steady but heavy. "The Grammys, the mansions, the fake smiles. I chose to live real, to find something true, and I found her." He turned to Aisha, his eyes softening, but her blood ran cold. The crowd erupted, whispers turning to shouts. "Timo, for real? He's worth millions." Phones snapped back up, lenses flashing like paparazzi. Aisha's fists clenched, her nails biting into her palms. He'd lied. All those nights at Java Jive, splitting sandwiches, laughing under the neon sign. He'd been testing her, playing her. Her vow burned in her throat, now tasting like ash. "You knew," she whispered, her voice trembling, but loud enough for him to hear. "You knew they'd rip me apart, and you let me walk into this." Caleb's face fell, his hand reaching out, but she stepped back, the cola stain on her dress a screaming reminder of her humiliation. "Aisha, I didn't mean—" he started, but she cut him off. "You didn't mean to what? Let me stand here looking like a fool while you hid behind your little game?" Her voice cracked, raw and jagged, echoing off the stained glass windows. The crowd hushed, their eyes darting between them like vultures sensing drama. Shanice, her coworker, dropped her phone, her mouth open. Mrs. Jenkins leaned forward, her smirk gone, replaced by shock. "I left that life because it was poison," Caleb said, his voice low, pleading. "Every smile was a lie. Every friend had a price. I needed to know if love could be real, Aisha. You saw me when I was nobody. Just a guy with a guitar. You gave me that." His words hit her like a punch, but they didn't soften the betrayal. She loved him for his heart, his dreams, not some secret bank account or Grammy plaques. And he'd let her face this crowd alone, her dress dripping with their hate. "You tested me," Aisha spat, her eyes burning with tears she refused to let fall. You let them throw shade, let them soak me in soda to see if I'd break. That ain't love, Caleb. That's a trap. Her voice shook, but it carried, filling the sanctuary. The crowd was silent now, their phones forgotten, their faces a mix of guilt and awe. Caleb stepped closer, his hands open, but she shook her head, her heart splitting. I stood here, fighting for us, and you watched. You let me bleed. Aisha turned, her wet dress dragging, her steps heavy but deliberate. The aisle stretched before her, longer than it had ever been. She didn't look back at Caleb, didn't see the pain in his eyes or the way his shoulders sagged. The crowd parted, their whispers muted, as she pushed toward the oak doors. Her vow to stand tall, to love without fear, echoed in her mind, but now it clashed with a new truth. The man she'd loved had built their love on a lie. As she reached the doors, the weight of his secret pressed against her, threatening to crush what little pride she had left. Aisha Carter burst through the oak doors of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the Atlanta air hitting her like a slap, thick with summer heat and the tang of exhaust. Her cola-soaked wedding dress clung to her skin, a heavy, sticky reminder of the crowd's cruelty and Caleb's betrayal. Her sneakers pounded the pavement, each step a rebellion against the laughter still ringing in her ears. She didn't look back, didn't dare glimpse Caleb's face, those eyes that had once felt like home, now a stranger's mask. The city pulsed around her, car horns blaring, trap beats thumping from a passing SUV, but Aisha felt alone, her heart a raw wound bleeding pride. She reached her Vine City apartment, slamming the door so hard the hinges groaned. The cola-stained gown hit the floor in a heap, and she kicked it into a corner, her breath hitching. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. TikTok notifications, just Sodabride trending, strangers dissecting her humiliation for clout. She swiped them away, her fingers trembling, and sank onto the couch, hugging her knees. The memory of Caleb's voice at the pulpit, Simo, the producer, cut deeper than the crowd's jeers. He'd tested her love, let her walk into that church blind, let her drown in their shade. Her fists clenched, nails biting into her palms. How could she have been so dumb? A knock jolted her. Aisha, it's me, LaToya called, her voice muffled but urgent. Aisha dragged herself to the door, letting her co-worker in. LaToya's braids swung as she stepped inside, carrying a greasy bag of wings from Waffle House. Her eyes softened, taking in Aisha's red-rimmed eyes. Girl, you look like you've been through it, she said, setting the bag down. Eat something before you fall apart. Aisha shook her head, her throat too tight. I ain't hungry, she muttered, but LaToya wasn't having it. You need to keep it real with yourself, she said, sitting close. What Caleb did was messed up, but you stood up in that church. You owned it. Don't let his secret steal that. Aisha's chest ached, LaToya's words stirring the embers of her vow. He played me, she whispered, her voice cracking. I thought he was just him, not some music hotshot hiding behind a delivery van. LaToya leaned back, her lips pursed. Yeah, he was shady, but you saw something in him before all this. Was that a lie too? Aisha didn't answer, her mind drifting to Java Jive, 2 years ago. Caleb was on the open mic stage, his guitar singing a melody that hushed the crowd, his voice raw and honest. You're more than they let you see, he told her later, over a shared coffee, his crooked smile lighting her up. Those nights had felt real, too real to be a game. She stood, needing air, and grabbed her jacket. I gotta get out of here, she said, ignoring LaToya's worried look. The streets of Atlanta buzzed, kids on bikes, vendors hawking snow cones. But the stares followed her, sharp and curious. That's her, the TikTok bride, a woman whispered, phone in hand. Aisha kept walking, her sneakers carrying her to the Chattahoochee River, its muddy waters glinting under the dusk. She sank onto a bench, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and honeysuckle. A street busker strummed nearby, his guitar pulling an old Outcast riff, the notes twisting into her heart. It sounded like Caleb's song, the one he'd played just for her. Her eyes stung, tears spilling as she remembered their Tuesdays at Piedmont Park. Caleb's fingers tapping rhythms on his knee, his stories of wanting to make music that mattered. I want my songs to feel like home, he'd said, his eyes bright with a fire she'd envied. She'd believed in him, shared her own dreams. Small ones, like owning a cleaning business. Big ones, like being seen for who she was. But now those memories felt tainted. Had he been laughing at her, knowing he was Simo, the guy behind Grammy-winning tracks? Had he watched her scrub floors, knowing he could buy the houses she cleaned? Aisha's hands gripped the bench, her knuckles whitening. I stood up for us, she whispered to the river, her voice swallowed by the current. And he let me fall. The busker's song faded, leaving her with the hum of cicadas in her own heartbeat. LaToya's words echoed. You owned it, but so did Caleb's. You saw me when I was nobody. Her heart twisted, caught between love and betrayal. Could she forgive a man who'd built their love on a test? Could she trust herself to try? She stood, the river's ripples reflecting the last of the sunlight. Atlanta's skyline loomed, indifferent, but Aisha felt a spark of defiance. She'd walked that aisle, faced their hate, and spoken her truth. Caleb's secret didn't own her. She'd decide what came next. Not the crowd, not the internet, not even him. As she turned back toward the city, her steps steadier, the question lingered, sharp as a blade. Was her love stronger than his lie? Aisha Carter's sneakers crunched on the gravel path leading to Jackson Bridge, the Atlanta skyline glowing orange under a fading September sun. The Chattahoochee River churned below, its muddy ripples catching the last light like a fractured mirror. Her heart thudded, louder than the distant trap beats pulsing from a car stereo across the bank. She'd spent days wrestling with Caleb's letter. Meet me on the bridge at sunset, just to listen. Its words burning a hole in her pocket. The cola-stained dress, the church's laughter, his bombshell as Simo, the Grammy-winning producer. It all weighed on her, heavy as the humid air. But she was here, not for him, but for herself. To end this, or to start something new, she didn't know yet. She spotted Caleb at the bridge's center, his lanky frame leaning against the rusted railing. No Amazon polo now, just a plain hoodie and jeans. His eyes, those same steady ones from Java Jive, locked on her as she approached. But he didn't move, didn't crowd her. He was keeping his word, just listening. Aisha stopped a few feet away, her hands stuffed in her jacket pockets, her breath short. The city hummed behind her, horns, kids laughing, a street vendor's call. But on this bridge, it was just them, the river, and the truth. You came, Caleb said, his voice soft, almost lost in the breeze. Aisha's jaw tightened, her fingers curling in her pockets. Didn't come for you, she said, her tone sharp but steady. I came for me. His shoulders sagged, but he nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. Fair enough, he said, his voice low, raw. I don't deserve more than that. Aisha stepped closer, her sneakers scraping the concrete. You dropped a bombshell in that church, Caleb. Simo? Grammys? You let me walk down that aisle, let them soak me in soda, let them call me a joke, all to test me. Her voice trembled, but she pushed through, her eyes blazing. I stood there fighting for us, and you watched me bleed. Why? The question hung between them, heavy as the river's current. Caleb's hands gripped the railing, his knuckles paling. I was scared, he admitted, his voice cracking. Scared that if you knew who I was, you'd see the fame, the money, not me. I walked away from that life. Gold records, fake friends, because it was poison. Then I met you, Aisha. You saw the guy with a guitar, not a headline. I needed that to be real. His eyes glistened, but Aisha's chest tightened, her anger flaring. Real? She snapped, stepping closer, her breath hot. You think letting me get humiliated was real? I loved you, Caleb. I shared my sandwich, my dreams, my heart, thinking you were just like me, scraping by, hoping for more. And you were playing a game. Her voice broke, tears stinging, but she held his gaze, refusing to look away. The memory of Java Jive flashed, his crooked smile, his melody wrapping around her like a warm blanket. Now it felt like a trap. Caleb's head dropped, his hands trembling on the railing. I wasn't playing you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I was hiding from a world that chewed me up. You were the only one who saw me, not Simo. But I messed up, Aisha. I should have told you. I should have stood up in that church. He looked up, his eyes raw. I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm asking you to let me prove I can be better. Aisha's throat burned, her fists clenching until her nails bit her palms. She wanted to scream, to shove him away, but his words stirred something. Hope, maybe, or just exhaustion. She turned to the river, its ripples catching the dying light. I gave you everything, she said, her voice softer now, heavy with hurt. And you broke me. But I'm not broken. She faced him, her chin lifting. I forgive you, Caleb. Not for you, but for me. So I can walk away free, not carrying your lies. Caleb's eyes widened, a tear slipping down his cheek. Thank you, he whispered, his voice thick. Aisha nodded, her chest lighter, like a chain had snapped. This doesn't mean we're good, she said, her tone firm. It means I'm choosing me. If you want a place in my life, you got to earn it. No more secrets. He nodded, his hand still gripping the railing. I'll wait, he said. As long as it takes. Aisha turned, her sneakers steady on the bridge. The Atlanta skyline blazed in the sunset, its lights flickering like possibilities. She walked away, not fast, not slow, her heart still raw but unburdened. Caleb didn't follow, his silhouette fading behind her, but his words lingered. I'll wait. As she stepped off the bridge, the city's pulse wrapped around her. Horns, laughter, a distant guitar riff. She was Aisha Carter, not a hashtag, not a victim. She was free to choose her path, whether it led back to him or somewhere new. Aisha's journey shows us that true dignity isn't about what you wear or what the world thinks. It's about standing tall through the hate and finding the strength to forgive without losing who you are. Her heart, scarred but unbroken, reminds us that freedom comes from choosing yourself, even when love feels like a risk. What about you? When's a time you had to forgive someone to set yourself free, and how did it change you? Drop your story in the comments. I'm reading everyone. Next time, we're diving into another tale of courage, where one choice flips a life upside down, so hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to not miss it. Thanks for watching from the heart, y'all. Your support keeps these stories alive. See you in the next one. Stay real, stay strong.